for? Where is he? What an incredible, incredible leader, American leader. I want to congratulate and thank all the leaders who have been a part of today. Congresswoman Debbie Mercasel-Powell, thank you for welcoming us to your district. Magdala Orioles, Fat Joe, Jose Andres, and of course, Sergeant Paul Cruz. Thank you all. There's the Congresswoman. Thank you all. Okay, you guys ready to do this? We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And let me just start by saying, I know there's been, folks on the other side trying to question the values that Joe Biden and I have. So let me just be really clear, Florida. Joe Biden and I are proud, patriotic Americans who share the values with the vast majority of the American people who want a president of the United States who speaks truth, who uses that platform not to beat people down, but to lift people up. The vast majority of the American people who want a president who understands that regardless of where we live, our race, our gender, the language our grandmother speaks, that we all have so much more in common than what separates us. That's what the American people want. That's what we want. So there's so much at stake, guys. So much at stake. And Florida's been so hard hit. I think that we're dealing right now with 4 crises that have all happened at the same time. We're dealing with this coronavirus, this pandemic, right? Which at this point has killed over 225,000 people in just the last several months. People who tragically, in many cases, were alone because of the nature of the virus, couldn't have family with them to hold their hands in their last hours and minutes on earth. This pandemic that has afflicted 9 million people in our country, who, by the way, will likely experience long-term health impacts. Doctors are talking about things like lung scarring. We are looking at a moment where there has been such tragedy in terms of loss of life, a mass casualty event that could only be compared to World War II. And here's the thing. The President of the United States, who is also the Commander-in-Chief, and it's important to point out, everything Sergeant Cruz said about the responsibility that comes with what we give that person to become that, including that their first priority should be the health and safety of the American people. But what do we have in the guy who's currently in the White House? On the issue of this pandemic, thanks to a guy by the name of Bob Woodward, we know he knew back on January 28th that this virus could kill people at 5 times the rate of the flu. We know he knew that it would impact people of every age. He knew it was airborne. And what did he do with that information? Right, sister. He covered it up. He didn't tell the American people. Can you imagine, as a parent, as a teacher, as a small business owner, what you might have done had you known on January 28th what the president knew? What you might have done? Because here's the thing, even before the pandemic, far too many Americans were working 2 and 3 jobs to put food on the table and pay the rent. And by the way, in Joe Biden and my America, nobody should have to work more than 1 job to pay the rent and put food on the table. how people might have prepared. How people might have prepared, knowing that even before the pandemic, most families don't have even $1,000 in savings. And if folks had known the predictable, which is that we might have to isolate, we may have to shut things down for a little bit, people could have saved up. How people could have prepared. Buying an extra couple rolls of toilet paper. But they sat on that information. And now, in the midst of this public health crisis, Donald Trump with his boy Bill Barr are in the United States Supreme Court suing to get rid of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act that President Obama, together with Joe Biden, brought to America and covered over 20 million people, including people with pre-existing conditions. Honk if you know somebody with diabetes. Honk if you know somebody with high blood pressure. Honk if you know somebody with breast cancer or lupus. And they're trying to take it away. So there's a clear choice in this election because you see, on the one hand, there's Joe Biden who says, we're going to expand what we did in creating Obamacare. We're going to make sure we bring down the cost of premiums and prescription medication. We're going to bring down Medicare eligibility to age 60. We're going to deal with the fact that when we're talking about health care, the body doesn't just start from the neck down. It includes the neck up, and that's called mental health care. A clear choice in this election. A clear choice. This pandemic has resulted in an economic disaster that is being compared to the Great Depression. Over 30 million people in just the last several months have filed for unemployment. Here in Florida, 1 in 9 households is describing their household as having been hungry. Here in Florida, 1 in 7 households is describing having a difficult time or finding it impossible to pay rent. Here in Florida, 1 in 4 small businesses is out of business, likely never to be able to reopen. And what does Donald Trump say? We're rounding the corner. But here's the thing on the economy. So on the one hand, you have Joe Biden, who when asked, how's the economy doing, always asks the question, well, tell me how working people are doing. Tell me how working families are doing. Which is why Joe Biden will not increase taxes on anyone making under $400,000 a year. Will bring down middle-class taxes, will put in place a policy where if you have children, you will pay no more than 7% of your income in child care. We will have a tax credit for first-time home buyers of $15,000, knowing that will help with down payment and closing costs. And on the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who when asked, yes, baby, who when asked about the economy, asks, well, how's the stock market doing? Asks, how are rich people doing? Which is why, as one of his first orders of business, he passed a tax cut for the top 1% and the biggest corporations in America, which will cause us to have to deal with a $2 trillion deficit. Well, with your help, Florida, over these next 3 days, when and God willing, if we win, Joe Biden and I are about to get rid of that tax cut and invest that money in working people, Invest that money in building back up our infrastructure, repairing our roads and bridges, investing in renewable energy and the creation of millions of jobs.